The deep space exploration ship Aurora drifted through the void, its engines humming softly. The crew had been searching for ancient relics, lost technology, anything that could give humanity an advantage in the vast unknown. But they never expected to find this. On the barren, forgotten planet below, something massive lay buried beneath the dust and rock. The scanners had picked up strange energy readings, pulsing like a heartbeat. It wasn't natural. It wasn't dead either. Commander Reed Carter stood at the edge of the excavation site, staring at the metal structure peeking through the cracked ground. The shape was smooth, curved like the body of a sleeping beast. His crew had uncovered just a small part of it, but the sensors suggested it was a warship, larger than anything built in modern history. "We shouldn't be here," whispered Dr. Evelyn Ross, the team's historian. Her voice trembled as she studied the ancient markings on the hull. This ship, it was never meant to be found. Reed exhaled, his breath fogging up his visor. "We've come this far. We're not leaving without answers." Lieutenant Bishop, the team's engineer, knelt beside the exposed hull, running his scanner over it. "This metal, it's like nothing we've seen before. It's resisting every attempt to analyze it." His fingers hovered over a strange marking, almost like a handprint, burned into the surface. The sky above turned a deep crimson. The blood moon had risen, casting an eerie glow over the barren land. Something shifted beneath the ground. Bishop yanked his hand away. "Did you feel that?" Before anyone could answer, the warship trembled. Dust and rock cracked apart as the ground rumbled violently. Sparks of red lightning arced across the surface of the ancient metal. And then a sound, a deep metallic groan, echoed across the landscape, like a giant exhaling after centuries of sleep. "Back to the shuttle. Now," Reed shouted. The team scrambled toward the transport. But before they could reach it, the ground collapsed beneath them. The ship was rising. The buried warship, forgotten by time, was awakening. Massive plates of armor shifted as the ground split apart. The dust cleared, revealing the full form of the monstrous vessel. It was sleek, black, and predatory, designed for war. Strange, crimson symbols along its hull began to glow, pulsing in time with the energy surging through its body. A loud, unnatural voice boomed from within the warship, vibrating through the air like a ghost from the past. "Systems on and line." Reed's breath caught in his throat. This was not just a ship, it was alive. "Get the Aurora on comms," he barked. Dr. Ross fumbled with her wrist communicator. "No signal. Something's jamming us." The warship's hull split open, revealing the cold red glow of its core reactor. The energy readings spiked, sending out shockwaves that made the air feel heavy. Then the ship moved. It lifted off the ground with terrifying speed, hovering for just a moment before shooting into the sky like a predator spotting its prey. The wind from its ascent nearly knocked the crew off their feet. As it vanished into the darkness of space, a single transmission echoed through their earpieces. "Target acquired." Silence followed. The sky was empty once more. But they all knew. It was hunting, and humanity was its prey. The warship was gone. The silence left behind felt unnatural, heavy with something unspoken. The crew of the Aurora stood frozen, staring at the empty sky where the massive vessel had disappeared. The blood moon's glow still bathed the land in eerie red light, as if it had witnessed something that no living being should have seen. Reed's fingers clenched into fists. The ground still trembled beneath his feet, the aftershock of the warship's awakening. His heart pounded against his ribs. This wasn't just some forgotten relic. This ship had purpose. It had intent. And now it was awake. A crackling sound filled the comms. Then static. And finally, "Commander Carter, do you copy?" The voice of Lieutenant Vega, Aurora's communications officer, broke through. "We lost your signal for over 5 minutes. What the hell just happened?" Reed took a breath, trying to steady himself. "We have a problem. That warship, It wasn't dead. It's active. And it just left the planet. Silence on the other end. Then, Vega's voice, shaken but firm. "Sir, I think you need to get back now." Reed exchanged a glance with Dr. Ross, then nodded. "Move out. Back to the shuttle." They ran, dust and debris still settling around them. Bishop stumbled but caught himself, his mind racing through everything he had just witnessed. The markings, the handprint, the instant activation. It was as if the ship had been waiting for something. Or someone. Minutes later, they reached their shuttle and launched toward the Aurora. As they broke through the planet's atmosphere, the full horror of the situation unfolded before them. The warship was not alone. It hovered in the distance, its sleek black body glowing with red, pulsing light. Around it, debris from destroyed ships floated lifelessly in the void. Some belonged to unknown origins, ancient wreckage drifting through the dark. But others were human. "Dear God," Ross whispered, "it's already started." A massive battleship, the Titan Spear, hung in space, burning from multiple impact points. The Aurora's scanners picked up no life signs from its crew. Whatever had happened, it had happened fast. Reed clenched his jaw. "We need to warn the fleet. If that thing keeps moving, it'll wipe out everything in its path." Then the warship turned. Slowly, deliberately. The red lights along its hull shifted, forming symbols that pulsed in a rhythmic pattern. Then a new transmission cut through every frequency, reaching not just the Aurora, but the entire sector. A voice, deep, hollow, unforgiving. "Hunting protocol activated." A low hum built up around the warship. The energy signature spiked, growing more powerful by the second. Reed's gut twisted. It was preparing to fire. Evasive maneuvers. Now. The Aurora's pilot barely had time to react before the warship unleashed its first shot. A beam of pure, burning energy sliced through space, annihilating what remained of the Titan's spear in an instant. The explosion sent shockwaves across the sector. The Aurora's shields flared as debris rained past them. Alarms screamed through the ship. "It's locking onto us," Vega shouted from the bridge. Ross's hands trembled as she worked the scanners. "It's not just attacking. It's studying us, our movements, our defenses, like it's learning how to hunt us better." Bishop's voice was barely a whisper. "It's alive." Reed's mind raced. The warship had been buried for centuries. It was not of human origin. It had waited beneath the surface of that planet for something. For the blood moon. For a signal. For a reason to rise again. Now it had found its purpose once more. And it had declared war. "Vega," Reed barked. "Send out a distress call. Every available fleet in the system needs to know." "I already did, sir," Vega interrupted. His voice was grim. "We got a response." Reed's stomach tightened. "From who?" A pause. Then, "The entire fleet is already on its way, and they're bringing everything." Reed's gaze flickered to the warship, still waiting, still watching. It wasn't attacking yet. It was baiting them, luring them into its hunt. And soon, the blood moon's shadow would stretch across the stars. The distress call had gone out. Every available warship in the sector was now racing toward the battlefield, bringing the full force of humanity's military might. But deep down, Reed knew the truth. They weren't ready for this. The Aurora's engines burned hot as it swerved through space, dodging the debris left behind by the Titan Spear. What was once one of the strongest ships in the fleet was now nothing but wreckage, its remains floating aimlessly in the void. The warship had torn through it like paper. Reed gritted his teeth as he turned toward the viewport, staring at the black predator that hovered in the distance. The blood-red glow from its hull pulsed like a heartbeat, a slow and methodical rhythm that sent a chill through his bones. Bishop's hands flew across the control panel, running scan after scan. His face was pale, eyes wide with disbelief. "I don't get it," he muttered. "This ship, it moves like it has a mind of its own. It's not just reacting to us, it's predicting us. Ross stood behind him, arms crossed tightly. It's been dormant for centuries. It should be nothing but scrap metal. And yet, the moment it woke up, she shook her head. It's like it never stopped hunting. A sudden burst of static crackled through the comms. Then, a new voice, a grim, unfamiliar one. "This is Admiral Holt of the First Fleet. All units, hold formation and prepare for engagement. Do not let that thing escape the system." Reed reached for the console. "Admiral, you don't understand. We've scanned this thing. It's not just another warship. It's something else. I know what it is, Commander." The Admiral's voice was sharp, cold. "And I know why it was buried." Silence. Reed glanced at his crew, seeing the same question in their eyes. "You knew about this." A pause. Then the Admiral spoke again. "There's no time for explanations. Just know that if we let it leave this system, it won't stop. It never stops." Something about the way he said those words sent a chill through Reed's spine. The fleet arrived in waves. Dozens of warships emerged from hyperspace, their hulls gleaming under the dim red glow of the blood moon. Fighters swarmed from their hangars, forming attack formations, weapons locked onto the target. The enemy ship didn't move. It simply hovered, watching. Then, without warning, it vanished. A second ago, it had been there, right in front of them. Now it was gone. No jump signature, no energy trail, just nothing. The fleet went silent. Bishop's voice cracked as he whispered, "What the hell?" "Stay sharp," the Admiral commanded. "It's still here." Reed's hands tightened into fists. It wasn't running. It was stalking. A deep, hollow sound rumbled through space. Not from comms, not from any ship, but from the void itself. It was everywhere, vibrating through the metal of the Aurora's hull. Then, the warship reappeared behind one of the fleet's destroyers. Before anyone could react, its weapons flared to life. A massive burning lance of energy ripped through the destroyer's core, splitting it in half. No explosion, no warning. One moment, the ship was there. The next, it was two separate pieces drifting into the void. Open fire. Now, the fleet retaliated. Hundreds of missiles, lasers and railgun rounds lit up space, converging on the warship's location. The combined firepower of humanity's greatest warships should have torn it apart in seconds. But the warship moved like a ghost. Its form flickered, dodging attacks with inhuman precision. When it didn't move, the shot simply passed through it, as if the ship itself wasn't entirely in this reality. And then, it struck again. A battleship, the Silver Dawn, took a direct hit to its engines. The impact sent a shockwave through the fleet, knocking smaller ships off course. Flames erupted across the hull as emergency systems failed one by one. The crew barely had time to scream before the warship finished the job. One more precise shot to the reactor, and the Silver Dawn was gone. Ross's breath was shaky. "We're not fighting a ship. We're fighting a predator." Another explosion. Another ship lost. The entire fleet was being hunted. Reed's mind raced. He had never seen technology like this. It was beyond human, beyond anything. The blood moon loomed above them, watching. And in its crimson light, the warship continued its hunt. The battlefield was a graveyard now. The wreckage of destroyed warships drifted through space like shattered bones, silent testaments to the slaughter that had taken place. The enemy ship hadn't just fought the fleet. It had dismantled it, one vessel at a time, like a predator toying with its prey. Reed stood on the Aurora's bridge, staring at the chaos unfolding before him. The crimson glow of the blood moon bathed everything in an eerie light, as if the universe itself was bearing witness to the massacre. The warship hovered in the distance, still untouched, its black hull gleaming under the flickering remains of dying ships. "This isn't a battle," Ross whispered. "It's an execution." Bishop's hands trembled over the controls. "Our weapons are useless. Our tactics, useless. It's like it knows what we're going to do before we even do it." Reed clenched his jaw. He had commanded battles before. He had seen death, destruction. But nothing like this. Every time they fired, the warship wasn't there. Every time they moved, it was already ahead of them. The Aurora's comms flared to life. It was Admiral Holt. His face appeared on the screen, streaked with smoke and blood. The bridge behind him was in ruins, alarms blaring, sparks flying. "Commander," he said, voice strained, "we don't have much time. Listen carefully." Reed leaned forward. "Sir, we need to retreat. This thing—" "There is no retreat," Holt interrupted. "You don't understand what we're dealing with." The comms flickered. The signal was weak, breaking apart. Reed gritted his teeth. "Then explain it to me. What is this ship? How do we fight it?" Holt's expression darkened. The screen glitched, but not before Reed caught a glimpse of something behind him. A red glow creeping along the walls of his bridge. "The warship," Holt said, voice lowering. "It isn't just an enemy vessel. It's an ancient machine of war designed to hunt civilizations to extinction." Reed's blood ran cold. Ross shook her head in disbelief. "You mean—" "It was buried for a reason," Holt continued. "Centuries ago, another species fought it. They couldn't destroy it, so they trapped it. They sealed it beneath that planet, hoping it would never wake up again." Bishop swallowed hard. "And we just dug it up." The screen flickered again. Holt's face twisted in pain. The deep humming noise, the same one they had heard before, filled the comms. The red glow behind him spread, and suddenly a shadow moved. Reed's stomach dropped. "Sir, get out of there." The transmission cut out. Static. Then nothing. A cold silence filled the bridge. No one spoke. No one breathed. Then Vega's voice, small, distant, terrified. "Sir, the Admiral's ship is gone." Reed turned sharply to the viewport, heart hammering. The flagship, once the mightiest vessel in the fleet, was now just debris. Gone in seconds. Erased. A single thought echoed through his mind. "We can't win this." The warship turned. Slowly. Deliberately. Its red lights pulsed in a haunting rhythm. And Reed suddenly understood. It wasn't just destroying them. It was learning. Studying their defenses, their strategies, their weaknesses, and the more they fought, the better it became at hunting them. Ross exhaled sharply. If it's a machine, there has to be a weakness. Reed's hands curled into fists. A weakness. There had to be one. But so far, everything they threw at it had failed. Every ship, every missile, every maneuver, it had anticipated all of it. Bishop suddenly froze, eyes wide. "Wait." His fingers flew over the controls, running the scanner logs in reverse. It wasn't reacting to our attacks. It was reading them before we even launched them. Ross frowned. "What are you saying?" "I'm saying, it doesn't just see us," Bishop whispered. "It predicts us." Reed's breath caught. That explained everything. The warship wasn't just faster. It wasn't just better. It was always ahead of them because it could calculate their every move before they even made it. A terrible realization settled over them. "This thing isn't just hunting us," Ross murmured. "It's playing with us." The warship's hull shifted. The red glow spread across its surface, forming new patterns, as if it had reached a conclusion. Then, learning complete, a deep pulse rippled through space. The Aurora's systems flickered, the warship's entire body reconfigured, plates shifting, weapons changing. Ross's face went pale. "It's adapting." Bishop swore under his breath. It was already unstoppable. Now it's even stronger. A cold, merciless voice echoed through the comms, resonating through every remaining ship. "Hunting Protocol. Phase 2. INIT-8. Reed gritted his teeth. He didn't know what Phase 2 meant. But he knew it would be worse. And the hunt was far from over. The warship vanished again. Not through hyperspace, Not with a jump drive. It simply ceased to be in one place and reappeared in another, as if space itself obeyed its will. Reed barely had time to process before the first attack came. A lance of energy, brighter than anything they had seen before, erupted from the warship's core. It wasn't just a weapon, it was a death sentence. The beam tore through 3 cruisers in an instant, carving through their hulls like molten steel through ice. The ships didn't explode. They simply disintegrated, their very atoms stripped apart. "It's change," Ross whispered, her voice laced with dread. Bishop's hands trembled as he scanned the readings. "It's not just attacking anymore." He swallowed. "It's erasing us." Reed didn't hesitate. "All remaining ships, evasive maneuvers. Don't let it lock onto you." The fleet scrambled. Destroyers veered off course. Dreadnoughts desperately fired suppressive barrages. Fighters swarmed like insects against a god. But it didn't matter. The warship moved like a shadow, weaving through space with terrifying grace. Every ship it targeted was already dead before they could react. Vega's voice screamed through the comms. "It's picking us off one by one." Reed's gut twisted. He had never seen a battle like this. It wasn't war. It was slaughter. Another explosion. Another ship gone. The warship never missed. And then, it turned toward the Aurora. A single red beam blocked onto them, tracking their every move. The ship hummed with a sound that was neither mechanical nor alive, a predator's heartbeat before the kill. "Shields at max," Bishop shouted, rerouting everything to defenses. The Aurora lurched as the warship fired. A blinding energy pulse slammed into them, shaking every bolt, every panel, every fiber of their existence. The shields held, barely. Alarms screamed. Sparks rained from the ceiling. The power grid flickered, but they were still alive. For now. Ross gasped. "That shot, it wasn't meant to kill us." Reed knew she was right. The warship had destroyed every other ship instantly, but them. It was testing them, studying how much damage they could take. It was learning how to kill them more efficiently. Bishop's fingers flew over the console. "We have to go. We need to jump. Now." "We can't." Vega cut in. "That thing is disrupting hyperspace. If we try to jump, we'll be ripped apart." Reed's mind raced. Every escape route was cut off. Every counterattack was useless. The fleet was gone. The Aurora was next. Unless... Ross grabbed his arm. "Commander, you know what we have to do." He did. But he hated it. Because the only way to win this was to do the one thing the warship wouldn't expect. Something illogical. Chaotic. Something human. He took a breath, then made the call. "All remaining fighters, form up. We're going in close." Vega stared at him. "Close? Sir, that thing will tear us apart." Reed's jaw clenched. "Not if we do something it can't predict." Bishop's eyes widened. "We're going inside it." Ross nodded. "It knows how to fight fleets. It knows how to destroy ships." She met Reed's gaze. "But does it know how to fight something that boards it?" Silence. Then Vega exhaled. "That's insane." Reed's voice was firm. "That's why it'll work. No more running. No more fighting from a distance." The Aurora's engine screamed as it closed the distance, charging straight toward the warship's hull. The blood-red glow pulsed across the enemy vessel, reacting to their approach. Its form shifted, plating reconfiguring, new weapons emerging as if the ship itself was alive. It wasn't just adapting anymore. It was preparing. Reed didn't hesitate. "Brace for impact. We're going in hot." Vega gritted her teeth, gripping the controls as the ship shuddered under its own acceleration. Fighters swarmed alongside them, darting between enemy fire, dodging plasma rounds that could erase them from existence in an instant. The warship fired. A lance of crimson light tore through space, barely missing the Aurora as Vega pulled the ship into a last-second roll. The heat from the blast melted part of the outer hull, but they kept going. Bishop yelled over the alarms. That was too close. Ross's voice was sharp. It knows we're trying to breach. It's trying to cut us down before we get there. Reed's hands tightened. Not today. The warship's surface rippled, armor plating splitting apart like a gaping wound, revealing an entrance, a mechanical maw, opening just for them. It's letting us in. Bishop's voice was filled with disbelief. No, Ross whispered. It's trapping us. Too late to turn back. Vega pushed the thrusters to max, and the Aurora plunged into the beast. Darkness swallowed them whole. The moment they crossed the threshold, the ship died around them. Engines cut out. Lights flickered. The ship drifted, caught in an invisible field. It wasn't gravity. It wasn't an energy dampener. It was something worse. We've lost power, Bishop reported, his voice hushed. We're caught in something. Ross stared at the displays, her hands trembling. It's inside us now. It's inside the systems. The ship groaned. Metal twisted. The walls seemed to breathe, as if the warship itself had infiltrated them. Then, a voice. Not over the comms, not from any speaker. It was inside their heads. Specimens acquired. Reed's blood ran cold. The warship hadn't just been fighting them. It had been waiting, luring them in. And now it had them exactly where it wanted. The emergency lights flickered. Shadows stretched, twisting unnaturally along the walls. The deeper they moved inside the warship, the less human their surroundings felt. This wasn't a ship. This was a living machine. A voice. Bishop's. Barely a whisper. I don't think we're the first ones to try this. They saw them. Remains, scattered across the corridors, floating in zero gravity. Not human. Alien. Skeletons twisted into the walls, their bodies fused with the ship itself. Some had helmets, cracked and shattered. Others had no heads at all. God. Ross exhaled. This thing doesn't just kill. She swallowed. It absorbs. Reed clenched his fists. Not us. He motioned forward. We end this now. The team pressed deeper. Doors shifted open for them, the ship guiding them through, leading them to the heart of the beast. Every wall pulsed, the red glow intensifying. And then, they reached it. The core. A massive pulsating sphere, floating in the center of an endless void, tendrils of energy stretching out like veins. It breathed, a slow rhythmic hum that vibrated in their bones. Ross took a step forward. That's it. Bishop adjusted his weapon. So how do we kill it? Before Reed could answer, the floor shifted beneath them, and the shadows came alive. Figures emerged from the walls, bodies half metal, half flesh. They weren't soldiers. They weren't machines. They were the ones who had come before. Their eyes, what was left of them, glowed red, voices whispering words in 100 lost languages. Their bodies twisted, bound to the ship, controlled by it. Reed's stomach dropped. It's not just a warship. His voice was cold. It's a graveyard. And it wanted them to join it. The figures moved. Not like soldiers, not like machines, but like puppets on invisible strings. Their limbs jerked unnaturally, their heads tilting in sharp, erratic motions. Some still wore remnants of their old uniforms, alien insignias long faded, battle armor corroded, and fused with metallic veins growing from their bodies. They were trapped souls, absorbed into the warship's flesh, neither alive nor dead. And now, they were coming for them. Open fire. Reed's voice cut through the horror. Ross and Bishop didn't hesitate. Bolts of plasma ripped through the darkness, cutting down the advancing figures, but it wasn't enough. Their bodies reformed, metal tendrils stitching their wounds back together in seconds. Vega's scream came through the comms. Sir, the Aurora is changing. Reed turned to the viewport, and his blood ran cold. The ship they had arrived in, the Aurora, was no longer the same vessel. The walls shifted, red veins crawled across the hull, and the engines pulsed with the same sickly glow as the warship's core. The ship was being consumed. "We're running out of time," Ross snapped, firing at another advancing husk. Reed's mind raced. They couldn't win by fighting. This wasn't a battle. It was a trap. They had to destroy the core. But how do you kill something that isn't truly alive? His eyes locked onto the pulsating sphere at the center of the chamber. The warship's heart. If it's like a machine, it has to have a shutdown sequence. Bishop's voice was rushed, desperate. Something controlling all of this. Reed knew he was right. The warship was ancient, built to consume and adapt. But there was one thing it had never faced before, something truly unpredictable. Humans. "Ross, Bishop, cover me," Reed shouted. He ran straight for the core. The warship reacted instantly. The red glow flashed violently, and the tendrils of energy lashed out toward him. They moved like living whips, slicing through the air with terrifying speed. Ross and Bishop fired relentlessly, covering him as best they could. Explosions tore through the chamber, temporarily halting the core's defenses. Reed reached the edge of the platform. The core pulsed, aware of his presence. The whispers grew louder, 1,000 voices speaking in unison. "You can note END wait 8 hays, Nino beginning." Reed gritted his teeth. "Watch me." He yanked the detonator from his belt. Bishop's voice crackled over the comms. "Sir, if you set that off, we're still inside." "We won't be for long," Reed growled. The ship shuddered as he slammed the charge into the exposed tendrils of the core. Sparks erupted as the warship let out a deafening screech, a sound that wasn't just mechanical, it was pained. The husks froze, their bodies convulsing. Ross's eyes widened. "It's working." Reed triggered the detonator. A blinding explosion engulfed the core, sending shockwaves through the entire warship. The red glow flickered violently, then began to fade. The husks collapsed, their forms disintegrating into dust. The ship's tendrils shriveled, metal plating fracturing. Bishop grabbed his comm. "Vega, is the Aurora still functional?" There was a pause. Then, "Power's coming back online." Vega's voice was alive with hope. "We can still get out of here." Reed turned back toward the collapsing chamber. "Move." The team sprinted toward the exit, dodging falling debris as the warship tore itself apart from the inside. They made it back onto the Aurora just as the warship's hull began to implode. Vega punched the thrusters, and the ship roared to life, breaking free from the dying beast. Through the viewport, Reed watched as the once unstoppable warship crumbled, its form disintegrating into cosmic dust. It was over. The warship, the thing that had hunted civilizations to extinction, was finally dead. Bishop exhaled heavily. "I can't believe we actually pulled that off." Ross leaned back, exhaustion hitting her all at once. "We got lucky." Reed's gaze remained on the void where the warship had once been. "No," he murmured. "We were just human enough to be unpredictable." The blood moon faded into the distance as the Aurora turned toward home. The hunt was finally over,